The phone call came on a Tuesday morning while I was watering the roses in my front garden. The number was local but unfamiliar and I almost didn't answer. Something made me pick up on the third ring. Mrs. Catherine Henderson? The voice was male, hesitant, with a thick Brooklyn accent. Speaking. Mrs. Henderson, this is Tony Moretti from Moretti's Pawn and Jewelry on Madison Street. I'm calling about a Rolex watch that came into my shop yesterday. A 1972 Submariner with an inscription on the back that says, "To my Katie, forever yours, James." The garden hose slipped from my hand, water pooling around my feet on the concrete. That watch. James's watch. The one he'd worn every single day of our 42-year marriage until the heart attack took him 3 years ago. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Before I tell you how my own grandson broke my heart, let me explain something about that Rolex. It wasn't just a watch. It was the last piece of my husband I had left that still carried his warmth, his presence, his promise of forever. Mrs. Henderson, are you still there? I found my voice, though it came out shakier than I would have liked. Yes, I'm here. That watch was stolen from my home. I figured as much. Tony's voice was kind, sympathetic. The young man who brought it in, early 20s, said it was his grandfather's and that his grandmother had given him permission to sell it. But something felt off. I've been in this business 30 years, Mrs. Henderson. I know when someone's lying. What did this young man look like? Even as I asked, I already knew. My heart was breaking in advance of the answer. Tall kid, brown hair, had a tattoo of a compass on his left forearm. Said his name was Tyler Henderson. Tyler. My grandson. The boy I'd raised after my daughter Sarah died of cancer when he was just 8 years old. The child who'd cried in my arms at his mother's funeral, who I'd tucked into bed every night for 5 years, who called me Grammy and said I made the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. That Tyler had stolen his grandfather's watch and sold it for cash. Mrs. Henderson, I didn't complete the transaction. I told him I needed to verify ownership first. The watch is still here, safe in my vault. But I thought you should know. I thanked Tony Moretti, promised to come by his shop that afternoon, and stood in my flooded garden trying to process what I'd just learned. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn off the hose. The Rolex had been sitting in its original box in my bedroom dresser, top drawer, right where I'd kept it since James died. I'd taken it out sometimes, held it, wound it, felt the weight of it in my palm and remembered my husband's strong, steady hands. The inscription on the back was from our first anniversary. James had been a Navy pilot then, making lieutenant's pay, and that watch had cost him 3 months' salary. He'd presented it to me with such pride, such love. "So you'll always know that somewhere in this world I'm thinking about you," he'd said. "No matter where the Navy sends me, my heart is on your time." I tried to give it back, told him it was too expensive, too extravagant. We had a baby on the way, bills to pay. But James had clasped it on his wrist and never taken it off. Not for 42 years. Not until the funeral home staff had removed it and placed it in my hands. And now Tyler had stolen it. My Tyler. The boy I'd sacrificed everything for. I went inside and checked the dresser drawer with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. The box was gone. The watch was gone. In its place was nothing but the faint outline where the box had rested for 3 years. I sat down on my bed, James's side, and tried to remember the last time Tyler had been in my house. Sunday dinner 4 days ago. He'd seemed distracted, kept checking his phone, excused himself to use the bathroom twice. The second time he'd been gone for nearly 10 minutes. Long enough to slip into my bedroom. Long enough to open a drawer. Long enough to take the one thing in this world I treasured most. My phone rang again. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Hey, Grammy." His voice was bright, cheerful, completely normal. "Just wanted to thank you again for Sunday dinner. Your pot roast was amazing as always." I closed my eyes and listened to my grandson lie to me. "You're welcome, sweetheart. So, I was thinking maybe I could come by this weekend? There's something I wanted to talk to you about." Something he wanted to talk about. Probably a request for money. That's what these calls usually led to lately. Tyler needed help with rent, with his car payment, with some unexpected expense. And I'd always said yes because he was my grandson, my daughter's only child, the last piece of Sarah I had left. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Oh, nothing urgent. Just some ideas I had about maybe taking some time off work, doing some traveling. Seeing the world while I'm young. Traveling. So that's what he needed the money for. Not rent, not bills, not some emergency. A vacation. That sounds lovely, dear. Where were you thinking of going? Europe, maybe. I've always wanted to see Italy, Greece, those kinds of places. There's this group trip package, all-inclusive, but it's kind of expensive. I was going to ask if you might be able to help me out, but actually, I think I've figured out a way to cover it myself. The watch. He was going to use the money from selling his grandfather's watch to fund a luxury vacation to Europe. How resourceful of you, I said, my voice somehow still calm, still loving, still Grammy's voice even as my heart was shattering into pieces. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Anyway, I should let you go. I'll call you later this week, okay? Love you, Grammy. I love you too, Tyler. I hung up and sat in silence, still holding the phone, still sitting on James's side of the bed. The boy I'd raised, the child I'd loved more than my own life, had just lied to my face while planning to use stolen money from his dead grandfather's watch to fund a vacation. How had I not seen this coming? How had I missed the signs? But as I sat there, memories started surfacing. Small things I'd dismissed or explained away. Money missing from my purse a few months ago. $20 here, $50 there. I'd thought I was just being forgetful, misremembering how much cash I had. That silver picture frame that disappeared last Christmas. Tyler had said he'd taken it to have it polished as a surprise, but I'd never seen it again. My mother's pearl earrings that I couldn't find last spring. I'd assumed I'd misplaced them, maybe put them somewhere unusual when I was cleaning. How many times had Tyler been in my home with access to my belongings? How many Sunday dinners had been reconnaissance missions to see what else he could take? I walked through my house room by room, checking, cataloging, remembering. The antique clock that used to sit on the mantel? Gone. Tyler had borrowed it last year to show a friend who collected antiques. He'd never returned it. The silver tea set my grandmother had left me? I hadn't seen it in months. Where had it gone? By the time I finished my inventory, I'd identified at least $15,000 worth of missing items. Small things I wouldn't necessarily notice right away. Nothing as significant as the Rolex, but stolen nonetheless. My grandson hadn't just taken his grandfather's watch. He'd been systematically robbing me for over a year. I made myself a cup of tea with hands that had finally stopped shaking and sat down at my kitchen table to think. I'd spent the last 15 years being Tyler's grandmother, protector, and benefactor. After Sarah died, his father, Mark, had been lost in his own grief, barely functional. Tyler had needed stability, love, structure. So I'd provided it all. I'd taken him to school every morning, helped with homework every night, attended every baseball game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. When Mark finally got his life together and remarried when Tyler was 13, I'd stepped back but remained involved. Birthday parties, holidays, Sunday dinners. I'd been there for every milestone. I'd paid for his college when Mark's new wife insisted they couldn't afford it. 4 years at state, $80,000 total. Tyler had graduated 2 years ago with a degree in business management and a job at a marketing firm that he complained about constantly. I'd helped with his security deposit when he moved into his first apartment. Co-signed his car loan when his credit wasn't good enough. Given him money when he was between jobs, last year for 3 months. Added it all up, I'd given Tyler nearly $150,000 over the past 15 years, not counting the value of the stolen items. And he'd thanked me by stealing from me. The tea had gone cold in my cup. Outside, the afternoon sun was painting long shadows across my backyard, the yard where Tyler used to play as a child. I could see him so clearly in my memory, running through the sprinkler, laughing, calling for me to watch him do a cartwheel. When had that innocent little boy turned into a thief? My phone rang again. This time it was my best friend, Patricia, calling for our usual Tuesday afternoon chat. "Catherine, you sound awful." "What's wrong?" I told her everything. The phone call from the pawn shop, the missing watch, the inventory of stolen items, Tyler's casual lies about his European vacation plans. Patricia was silent for a long moment after I finished. Then she said very quietly, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Catherine, you need to call the police. This is theft. Multiple counts of theft. He's my grandson, Patricia. He's also a criminal who's been stealing from his elderly grandmother for over a year. What happens when there's nothing left to steal? What happens when he decides you're in the way of a bigger inheritance?" Her words hit like ice water. I hadn't thought that far ahead, but she was right. If Tyler was capable of stealing his grandfather's most precious possession, what else was he capable of? I need to think, I said. Don't think too long. And Catherine? Get that watch back from the pawn shop before Tyler figures out what happened and tries to claim it anyway. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen as the afternoon faded into evening, thinking about love and betrayal, about the boy who called me Grammy while robbing me blind. Finally, I stood up, grabbed my purse and keys and drove to Moretti's Pawn and Jewelry. The shop was in an older part of town, wedged between a dry cleaner and a bodega. The windows were barred, the door was heavy glass with a security camera mounted above it. A bell chimed as I entered. Tony Moretti was exactly what I'd pictured from his voice. Late 50s, thick-build, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked up from behind the counter and recognition crossed his face. Mrs. Henderson? Mr. Moretti. Thank you for calling me. He nodded and pulled a small box from under the counter. My breath caught as he opened it. There was James's Rolex, looking exactly as I remembered it. The stainless steel case worn smooth from decades of wear. The black dial with luminous markers. The date window at 3 o'clock still showing the 15th, the day James died. I haven't wound it, Tony said softly. Didn't seem right. I picked up the watch, felt its familiar weight in my hand, turned it over to read the inscription. To my Katie, forever yours, James. My vision blurred with tears. How much did my grandson ask for it? 5,000. It's worth at least 3 times that, but kids never know what they have. What did you offer him? Nothing. Like I said, I didn't complete the transaction. Told him I needed to verify provenance and asked him to come back tomorrow. I'm guessing he won't show up now. I pulled out my checkbook. Mr. Moretti, what do I owe you for holding this for me? He waved his hand dismissively. Nothing. I didn't buy it, so there's nothing to pay. It's your watch. You should have it back. That doesn't seem fair to you. Mrs. Henderson, I got 3 grandkids of my own. If one of them ever did something like this to their grandmother, I'd want someone to look out for her too. Consider it paying it forward. I thanked him with tears streaming down my face, clasped James's watch on my own wrist where it hung loose and heavy, and drove home with my heart breaking and my mind racing. Tyler would realize the sale had fallen through. He'd probably try again at another pawn shop. Unless I did something to stop him. Unless I made it clear that the days of helping himself to Grammy's things were over. But what could I do? Call the police and have my grandson arrested? The thought made me sick. Cut him off completely and lose the last connection to my daughter? That seemed equally impossible. I got home just as the sun was setting, walked into my house and stood in the hallway looking at the framed photos on the wall. Tyler at 8, gap-toothed and grinning. Tyler at 13, awkward and gangly. Tyler at 18, proud in his graduation gown. Tyler at 23, handsome and confident at his college graduation. Which one was the real Tyler? The sweet boy I'd raised, or the thief who'd stolen his grandfather's watch? As I stood there, my phone buzzed with a text message. Tyler. Hey Grammy, I just realized I left my apartment keys at your house on Sunday. Would it be okay if I swung by tomorrow morning to grab them? Maybe around 10. I stared at the message for a long time. He wanted to come by tomorrow morning. To pick up keys he claimed he'd left here. Keys that I knew for a fact he hadn't left because I'd have noticed them. He was planning to come back. To take more. To continue stealing from me while I smiled and offered him cookies and told him I loved him. Something cold and hard settled in my chest, replacing the grief and confusion. Patricia was right. This had to stop. Tyler needed to face consequences. And I needed to stop being an easy target. I texted back, of course, sweetheart. I'll see you tomorrow at 10. I'll have fresh coffee ready. Then I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, Margaret Wells, explaining the situation and asking her to come by tomorrow morning at 9:30. The second was to Patricia, asking her to be here as a witness. The third was to Tony Moretti, thanking him again and asking if he'd be willing to document everything that had happened in writing. Tomorrow morning, Tyler was going to get a surprise. His easy target grandmother was about to show him what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. Margaret Wells arrived at 9:30 sharp, carrying her leather briefcase and wearing the no-nonsense expression that had served her well in 30 years of practicing family law. Patricia showed up 5 minutes later with a coffee cake and the kind of determined look that told me she was ready for battle. Are you sure about this, Catherine? Margaret asked as we settled in my living room. Once we confront Tyler with evidence of theft, there's no going back. Your relationship will never be the same. I looked down at James's Rolex on my wrist. I'd wound it last night for the first time in 3 years, and the familiar tick-tick-tick was like having my husband's heartbeat back in the room with me. My relationship with Tyler has been a lie for over a year, Margaret. Maybe longer. The boy I thought I knew wouldn't steal from his grandmother. This version of Tyler? I don't know him at all. Patricia squeezed my hand. You're doing the right thing. Am I? He's my grandson. My daughter's only child. Sarah would be horrified by what he's done, Patricia said firmly. You know she would. She'd want you to stand up for yourself. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. It was exactly 10 o'clock. Tyler was nothing if not punctual when he wanted something. I opened the door to find my grandson standing there with his trademark easy smile, the one that had been getting him out of trouble since he was 5 years old. He was wearing expensive jeans, a designer t-shirt I didn't recognize, and new sneakers that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Hey, Grammy. He leaned down to kiss my cheek and I caught the scent of expensive cologne. Thanks for letting me come by. Of course, sweetheart. Come in. I have coffee ready and Patricia brought cake. Tyler's smile faltered slightly when he saw Patricia and Margaret sitting in my living room. Oh, I didn't know you had company. I can come back later. No need. They're here to see you actually. Please, sit down. Tyler sat on the edge of my sofa, his body language shifting from casual to wary. His eyes kept darting between the three of us, trying to figure out what was happening. Tyler, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I want to ask you about something. Do you remember borrowing anything from my house recently? His expression was perfectly innocent. Borrowing? No, I don't think so. Why? Nothing at all. Maybe during Sunday dinner. Grammy, what's this about? He was using his confused voice, the one that suggested I was being silly or forgetful. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, opening it to a photo Tony Moretti had sent me yesterday. It showed Tyler standing at the pawn shop counter, James's Rolex clearly visible in his hand. Then perhaps you can explain this. The color drained from Tyler's face. For a long moment he just stared at the photo, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Then his brain kicked back into gear and he started scrambling for an explanation. Grammy, I can explain. That's not what it looks like. It looks like you stealing your grandfather's watch from my bedroom and trying to sell it at a pawn shop. I wasn't stealing it. I was going to borrow it just temporarily to get it appraised. You know, for insurance purposes. I was trying to help you. The lie was so smooth, so practiced that I almost believed he believed it himself. Tyler, the pawn shop owner, called me. He told me you said I'd given you permission to sell it. That you were planning to use the money for a trip to Europe. Tyler's jaw clenched. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how to spin this. Okay, fine. Yes, I was going to sell it. But Grammy, you never wear it. It's just sitting in a drawer doing nothing. I needed the money and I thought, what's the harm? You weren't using it anyway. The casual justification, the complete lack of understanding about what he'd done, hit me like a physical blow. What's the harm? I repeated softly. That watch was your grandfather's. He wore it every day of our marriage. It was on his wrist when he proposed to me, when your mother was born, when he walked Sarah down the aisle at her wedding. It was the last thing I took off his body at the funeral home. I know it has sentimental value, but Grammy, sentiment doesn't pay for things. It's just a watch. We could get you a new one, a better one even. Patricia made a sound of disgust, but I held up my hand to stop her from speaking. Just a watch, I said. Tyler, do you have any idea what you've done? Do you understand what you've taken from me? Look, I'm sorry, okay? I needed money and I panicked. But it's not like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm your grandson. You've always helped me when I needed it. This was just another way of you helping me. The audacity of it took my breath away. He'd stolen from me and was trying to frame it as me helping him. Margaret leaned forward, her lawyer voice cool and professional. Tyler, I'm Mrs. Henderson's attorney. She's asked me to be here today because this isn't an isolated incident. We've documented over $15,000 worth of items that have gone missing from this house in the past year. Items that were taken when you were the only person with access. Tyler's eyes widened, genuine panic starting to show through his composure. What? Oh, I don't know anything about other stuff. The watch was the only thing I took, I swear. What about the silver picture frame last Christmas? I asked quietly. My mother's pearl earrings? The antique clock? The silver tea set from my grandmother? Those were different. You said I could borrow the clock to show my friend. And did you show your friend? Or did you sell it? Tyler's silence was answer enough. And the earrings, I didn't realize I'd taken those. I thought you'd offered to give them to Jessica when we started dating. Tyler, you've never dated anyone named Jessica. Who did you sell my mother's earrings to? He looked cornered now, desperate. Grammy, please. I know this looks bad, but I've been under a lot of pressure. Work has been terrible, I'm behind on rent, my car payment is due. I just needed help and I was too embarrassed to ask. So instead you stole from me? For over a year? Instead of coming to me and being honest about your problems, you helped yourself to my belongings. What was I supposed to do? You're retired, you don't need all this stuff. You live alone in this big house full of things you never use. I figured you wouldn't even notice. There was the real Tyler, the one beneath the charming grandson mask. He'd calculated that I was an easy target, an old woman with too many possessions and not enough attention to detail. He'd been systematically robbing me because he thought I was too old, too trusting, too stupid to notice. You figured wrong, I said. Margaret, please show him the documentation. Margaret opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Tyler, Mrs. Henderson has detailed records of every item that's gone missing, including photographs, receipts where available, and estimated values. The total comes to approximately $18,500. That's grand larceny in this state. Tyler shot to his feet. Grand larceny? Are you insane? She's my grandmother. This is a family matter, not a legal issue. It became a legal issue when you committed multiple felonies, Margaret said calmly. Theft from an elderly person carries enhanced penalties in this state. We're looking at 3 to 7 years in prison if Mrs. Henderson chooses to press charges. Press charges. Tyler turned to me, his face a mixture of disbelief and anger. Grammy, you can't be serious. You're going to have your own grandson arrested. I'm trying to decide, I said honestly. Right now, I'm giving you a chance to explain yourself, to show some genuine remorse, to convince me that the boy I raised is still in there somewhere. Tyler ran his hands through his hair, pacing my living room like a caged animal. Remorse? You want me to grovel? Fine. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I took the stupid watch. I'm sorry about the other stuff. I made mistakes. But calling the cops? Threatening me with prison? That's not family, Grammy. That's cruel. What's cruel? Patricia interjected, her voice sharp. Is stealing from the woman who raised you. The woman who paid for your college, co-signed your car loan, gave you money whenever you asked. Catherine has given you over $150,000 in the past 15 years, and you repaid her by robbing her. Tyler's face went red. She offered that money. I never asked her to pay for my college. I never asked her to co-sign my loan. She volunteered for all of that. And you think that gives you the right to steal from me? I asked. I think it means I'm not some terrible person for taking a few things from someone who has plenty. You have more money than you could ever spend, Grammy. You live in this big house all alone with rooms full of stuff collecting dust. I'm 25 years old trying to build a life and I'm broke. How is it fair that you have everything and I have nothing? There was the entitlement that had been building for years. The belief that he deserved my things simply because I had them and he didn't. That my possessions were somehow his by right because we were family. Tyler, I said slowly, I worked for 40 years to build my life. Your grandfather and I started with nothing. We saved every penny, made sacrifices, went without things we wanted so we could build security for our future. This house, these possessions, they represent a lifetime of work and careful choices. They're not an inheritance you can help yourself to while I'm still alive. You don't get it, Tyler said, his voice bitter. You don't know what it's like trying to make it in this economy. Everything costs so much, wages are garbage, rent is insane. You had it easy. You bought this house for probably nothing, graduated college without debt, got jobs that actually paid decent money. My generation is screwed and people like you act like we're just lazy for not being able to afford anything. So your solution is to steal from your elderly grandmother? Margaret's voice was ice. My solution is to survive. Tyler shouted. And if that means taking a few things from someone who won't even notice they're gone, then yeah, I'll do what I have to do. The room fell silent. Tyler was breathing hard, his face flushed with anger and righteous indignation. He genuinely believed he was the victim here, that his circumstances justified his actions. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting after sitting so long. I walked over to the fireplace mantel where a photo of Sarah sat in its frame, taken 6 months before she died. She was laughing in the picture, her arms around teenage Tyler, both of them squinting in bright sunlight. "Your mother," I said quietly, "was diagnosed with cancer when you were 7 years old. She had no insurance, no savings, and a husband who could barely hold down a job. The medical bills destroyed them financially. Do you know how she paid for her treatment?" Tyler said nothing, but I could see his jaw working. "I sold my wedding ring. The one your grandfather had saved for months to buy. It was worth $15,000 and I sold it to pay for your mother's chemotherapy. I didn't tell anyone, not even your grandfather, until months later. I just did it because she was my daughter and she needed help." I turned to face Tyler. "Your mother lived 5 more years because of that ring. 5 more years to watch you grow up, to be your mom, to tell you she loved you. And when she finally lost her fight with cancer, the medical bills had piled up again. Do you know who paid for her funeral?" Tyler's hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "I took out a second mortgage on this house. This house that you think I don't deserve, that I had it so easy getting. I put myself $50,000 in debt at 60 years old to make sure your mother had a proper funeral, to make sure you and your father didn't have that burden." My voice was shaking now, years of buried grief and anger finally surfacing. "I did all of that without asking for anything in return. Without keeping score. Without thinking I had a right to something from her just because we were family. I did it because that's what love is. Real love. Not the transactional, entitled version you seem to think it is." Tyler's anger had faded, replaced by something that might have been shame. Or might just have been the realization that his excuses weren't working. "So when you stand there and tell me I don't understand, that I had it easy, that you're entitled to take from me because life is hard?" I shook my head. "You don't know anything about hard. You just know about taking." Margaret stood up. "Tyler, Mrs. Henderson is willing to offer you an alternative to pressing charges, but it comes with conditions." Tyler looked at her warily. "What kind of conditions?" "First, you return or replace every item you've taken. Full value, documented and verified. You have 30 days. That's almost $20,000. I don't have that kind of money. Then you get a second job. Sell your car if you have to. Figure it out. That's condition 1. What else? You pay your grandmother back the $150,000 she's given you over the years. We'll set up a payment plan with interest. $500 a month until the debt is cleared. That's going to take me decades." "Yes," Margaret said flatly. "It will. That's the consequence of your choices." Condition 3. You attend counseling. Not just any counseling, but specific therapy for people who've committed financial abuse against family members. Tyler looked at me desperately. "Grammy, this is insane. You can't be serious about making me pay back money you gave me as gifts." "They were gifts when I thought you were grateful," I said. "They became loans the moment you decided to steal from me. Those are the conditions, Tyler. Accept them or I file a police report this afternoon." He looked around the room at Margaret's impassive face, Patricia's disgusted expression, my unwavering gaze. "You'd really do it? You'd really send me to prison?" "Yes," I said simply. "Because I finally understand that I haven't been helping you all these years. I've been enabling you. I've been teaching you that you don't have to face consequences, that you can take whatever you want, that Grammy will always bail you out. Well, not anymore." Tyler sank back onto the sofa, his head in his hands. For a long moment he just sat there. Then he looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I need time to think about it." "You have until 5 o'clock today," Margaret said. "After that, the offer expires and we proceed with criminal charges." After Tyler left, silent and shaken, the 3 of us sat in my living room not speaking. Patricia finally broke the silence. "You did the right thing." "Then why do I feel so terrible?" "Because you're human," Margaret said gently. "Because you love him despite what he's done. That doesn't mean you should let him continue to hurt you." I looked down at James's watch on my wrist, running my finger over the inscription. "I keep thinking about what Sarah would want me to do. Would she want me to protect myself or protect her son?" "Sarah would want you to protect both," Patricia said. By holding Tyler accountable now, you might actually save him from becoming someone who hurts more people, who ends up in real legal trouble he can't escape from. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was the wake-up call Tyler needed. Or maybe I just destroyed what was left of my family for the sake of principle and hurt feelings. My phone buzzed at 4:47 p.m. A text from Tyler. I accept the conditions. I'll sign whatever paperwork you need me to sign. No apology. No expression of remorse. Just acceptance of terms like he was agreeing to a business deal. I showed the text to Margaret, who nodded. I'll draw up the documents. He needs to sign them in my office with witnesses. I'll set it up for tomorrow. After Patricia and Margaret left, I sat in my quiet house with just the ticking of James's watch for company. I'd won, I supposed. I'd stood up for myself, set boundaries, demanded accountability. So why did victory feel so much like grief? 6 months later, I sat in my garden watching the roses bloom again, thinking about how much had changed and how much had stayed the same. Tyler had signed Margaret's documents the next day, his signature angry and resentful on every page. He'd returned some of the stolen items within the first 2 weeks. The antique clock, surprisingly well preserved, and my grandmother's silver tea set, slightly tarnished but intact. The picture frame and pearl earrings were gone, sold months ago, but he provided receipts showing he'd purchased replacements of similar value. The first payment of $500 arrived in my account exactly 30 days after he signed the agreement. No note, no phone call, just a bank transfer with payment one of $300 in the memo line. 300 months. 25 years of payments stretching ahead of us both. Margaret had warned me that most people in Tyler's situation defaulted within 6 months, stopped paying, forced the victim to either forgive the debt or pursue legal action. But Tyler kept paying. Every month, like clockwork, $500 appeared in my account. I wasn't sure if that made things better or worse. Patricia came over every Tuesday for coffee, just like always. She'd been my anchor through all of this, the friend who told me hard truths when I needed to hear them and held my hand when the grief became overwhelming. Have you heard from him at all? She asked, settling into the patio chair with her usual cup of chamomile tea. Not directly. Margaret says he's attending the counseling sessions. Apparently he's not very engaged, but he shows up. That counts for something, I suppose. And Mark? Has Tyler's father reached out? I sighed, watching a butterfly land on my roses. Mark called once about 3 months ago. He was angry, accused me of being vindictive, said I was destroying Tyler's life over a few borrowed items. When I tried to explain what actually happened, he hung up on me. Patricia shook her head. Sarah's ex-husband never did have much backbone. That's probably why Tyler turned out the way he did. No accountability at home. Maybe. Or maybe I enabled him just as much. I saw the warning signs and ignored them because I didn't want to believe my grandson was capable of stealing from me. Catherine, you can't blame yourself for loving your grandson and wanting to believe the best of him. But wasn't that exactly what I should blame myself for? The counselor I'd started seeing, yes, I'd gotten my own therapist after all this, said I had to learn to separate my love for Tyler from my enabling of his behavior. That I could love him and still hold him accountable. That those two things weren't mutually exclusive. Sounded good in theory. In practice, it felt like I'd chosen principles over family, and most days I wasn't sure I'd made the right choice. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Henderson? A young woman's voice, professional but warm. This is Dr. Sarah Chin from Riverside Counseling Center. I'm Tyler Henderson's therapist. I'm calling because Tyler has asked me to reach out to you. My heart started beating faster. Is he all right? He's fine physically. But we've reached a point in his treatment where I think it would be beneficial for you two to have a mediated conversation. Tyler has some things he'd like to say to you, and I think it would help both of you to have that conversation in a structured, therapeutic environment. What kind of things does he want to say? I can't share the specific content without his permission, but I can tell you that Tyler has been doing genuine work in therapy over the past few months. He's starting to understand the impact of his actions, and he's ready to take responsibility in a more meaningful way. Starting to understand. After 6 months of therapy, he was starting to get it. Better late than never, I supposed. When were you thinking of having this conversation? Would next Thursday at 2 p.m. work for you? My office is on Riverside Drive, Suite 304. The session would be about 90 minutes. I agreed before I could talk myself out of it. After hanging up, I sat in my garden for a long time, trying to decide if this was progress or just another manipulation. Tyler had always been good at telling people what they wanted to hear. But Dr. Chin had sounded genuine. And if there was even a chance that Tyler was truly working on himself, didn't I owe it to Sarah's memory to at least listen? The week crawled by. I found myself rehearsing conversations in my head, imagining everything Tyler might say and how I would respond. Patricia offered to come with me for moral support, but I declined. This was something I needed to do alone. Dr. Chen's office was in a modern building near the river, all glass and natural light. The waiting room was decorated in soothing blues and greens, with comfortable chairs and peaceful artwork on the walls. I arrived 15 minutes early and spent the time watching the river flow past the windows, trying to calm my racing heart. At exactly 2 p.m., Dr. Chin emerged from her office. She was younger than I'd expected, probably in her early 40s, with kind eyes and an air of competence that immediately put me at ease. "Mrs. Henderson, thank you for coming. Tyler's already here. Before we go in, I want to set some ground rules. This is a safe space for both of you to speak honestly. I'll be here to facilitate to make sure the conversation stays productive. If at any point either of you needs a break, just say so. Does that sound all right?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Tyler was sitting in a chair facing the door when we entered. He looked different, thinner, older somehow. He was wearing a simple button-down shirt and jeans, nothing designer, nothing flashy. His hair was shorter, neater. He looked up when I walked in and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Shame. Real, genuine shame. "Hi, Grammy," he said quietly. "Hello, Tyler." I sat in the chair Dr. Chin indicated, across from Tyler with her position between us, slightly to the side. The arrangement felt both protective and neutral. "Tyler," Dr. Chin said gently, "would you like to start?" Tyler took a deep breath, his hands clenched together in his lap. "I've been working with Dr. Chin for 6 months now, and I've learned a lot about myself. About why I did what I did. And I wanted to tell you to your face that I'm sorry." He looked up at me and I could see tears in his eyes. "Not just sorry I got caught or sorry I have to pay you back. I'm sorry for what I did to you. For stealing from you, for lying to you, for betraying your trust. For taking advantage of your love and your generosity." I said nothing, just watched him, looking for signs of manipulation for the performance I'd seen so many times before. Dr. Chin has helped me understand that I developed this sense of entitlement over the years. I genuinely believed that I deserved your money and your things because life was hard for me. I blamed you for having things when I didn't. I resented you for not just giving me more. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "But the truth is, I was never grateful for what you did give me. The college education, the co-signed loan, the thousands of dollars over the years. I just kept wanting more, and when you didn't offer it fast enough, I took it." "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why wasn't what I gave you enough?" Tyler was quiet for a long moment. "Because I never learned to value it. Everything always came easy from you. You never said no, never set boundaries, never made me work for anything. So I stopped seeing your help as generosity and started seeing it as what I was owed." He looked directly at me now. "And that's not your fault. That's on me. I'm an adult. I made those choices. I convinced myself that taking from you was okay because you had plenty and I didn't. I didn't think about what those things meant to you. I didn't think about Grandpa's watch being irreplaceable, or those earrings being from your mother. I just saw dollar signs." "When did you become someone who only sees dollar signs?" I asked. "I don't know. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being the kid who loved you for making chocolate chip cookies and became the guy who calculated what I could get from you. And I hate that person, Grammy. I really do." Dr. Chin leaned forward slightly. "Tyler, can you tell your grandmother what you've learned about the impact of your actions?" Tyler nodded, swallowing hard. "I've learned that what I did wasn't just theft. It was elder abuse. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable person. I've learned that people like me, people who steal from their own elderly family members, were the worst kind of criminals because we use love as a weapon." His voice broke. "I've learned that when you took off Grandpa's watch at the funeral home, you were saying goodbye to the love of your life. And I tried to sell that goodbye for $5,000 so I could go on vacation. And I've learned that I can't undo that. Even if you forgive me, even if I pay back every penny, I can't undo the fact that I made you question whether your own grandson ever really loved you." The tears were flowing freely down his face now. "And the worst part? I did love you. I still do. But I loved your money more, and that's something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life." I found myself crying too, silent tears rolling down my cheeks. This was the Tyler I remembered, the boy who could be honest about his feelings, who understood the weight of his actions. Or was this just another performance more sophisticated than before? "How do I know this is real?" I asked. "How do I know you're not just saying what you think I want to hear?" "You don't," Tyler said simply. "All I can do is keep paying you back, keep going to therapy, keep working on being a better person. I can't prove I've changed. I can only show you over time." "Tyler has made significant progress," Dr. Chin said. "But he's right, change is proven through sustained action over time, not through a single conversation. What we're hoping for today is a starting point, an acknowledgement of harm done and a commitment to repair that harm." "What do you want from me?" I asked Tyler. "What are you hoping for here?" "Nothing," he said. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to trust me again. I'm not asking you to go back to the way things were. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did was wrong and I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry." We sat in silence for a moment. Dr. Chin looked between us, then spoke gently. "Mrs. Henderson, is there anything you'd like to say to Tyler?" I looked at my grandson, this young man I'd raised and loved and trusted and been betrayed by. I thought about Sarah, about whether she'd be proud of how I'd handled this situation or disappointed in how it had fractured our family. "I want to believe you've changed," I said finally. "But belief isn't enough. Trust has to be earned slowly over time through consistent action. So here's what I can offer you right now. I can offer you the opportunity to prove yourself. I can offer you my willingness to watch and see if your actions match your words." "That's fair," Tyler said. "But I need you to understand something. Even if you pay back every penny, even if you become the most honest person in the world, our relationship will never be what it was. That innocent trust, that unconditional love where I would have done anything for you, that's gone. What you destroyed can't be rebuilt exactly as it was." Tyler nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "I know. But maybe," I continued, "maybe we can build something new. Something more honest, with better boundaries, with mutual respect instead of manipulation. It won't be the same, but it might be better in some ways." "I'd like that," Tyler said. "If you're willing to give me the chance. I'm willing to see if you can earn it." Dr. Chin smiled slightly. "That's a good place to start. I'd like to suggest we continue these mediated sessions monthly, if you're both open to it. It will give you both a safe space to work through this process." We both agreed. When the session ended and Tyler stood to leave, he hesitated by the door. "Grammy, thank you for coming today. It means more than you know." I nodded but didn't respond. Words were cheap. I needed to see if his actions would match them. After he left, I sat with Dr. Chin for a few more minutes. "How do you think that went?" I asked her. "I think it was honest. Both of you were vulnerable and real with each other. That's all we can ask for in these situations." "Do you think he's really changed?" Dr. Chin considered her answer carefully. "I think Tyler is doing the work. Whether that translates into lasting change depends on many factors. But I can tell you that the young man I've been working with for 6 months is genuinely trying to understand himself and take responsibility for his actions. That's more than many people in his situation are willing to do." I drove home slowly, processing everything that had happened. James's watch was on my wrist, ticking steadily like it had been doing for 50 years. I thought about what he would have said about all this. James had been a military man, big on discipline and accountability. He would have approved of me holding Tyler responsible. But he'd also been a father who loved his daughter with his whole heart, and I knew he would have been devastated by what had happened to our family. "What do I do, James?" I whispered to the empty car. "How do I balance justice and love?" The watch kept ticking, steady and sure, offering no answers but providing comfort nonetheless. When I got home, Patricia was waiting on my front porch with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Thought you might need this," she said. We sat in my garden as the sun began to set, and I told her everything about the session. Patricia listened without judgment, letting me work through my tangled feelings. "Do you think you'll forgive him eventually?" she asked. "I don't know. I think maybe forgiveness isn't the right word. Maybe what I'm working toward is acceptance. Accepting that Tyler did something terrible, accepting that he's trying to change, accepting that our relationship is different now. That's very wise. It doesn't feel wise. It feels painful and complicated and uncertain. Sometimes those are the same thing. 3 months later, Tyler's payment arrived as always, but this time there was a note attached. Payment 10 of 300. Thank you for giving me the chance to make this right. Tyler. It wasn't much. Just a few words. But it was something. I saved the note in my desk drawer, along with the others that had started arriving with each monthly payment. Small messages, brief updates, nothing demanding or manipulative. Just Tyler checking in, staying accountable. I still wore James's watch every day. The weight of it on my wrist reminded me of love, of loss, of betrayal, and of the possibility of redemption. It was a complicated legacy, just like my relationship with Tyler had become. 1 year after our first mediated session, Tyler asked if he could come to Sunday dinner. Not to ask for anything, not to explain or defend himself. Just to have dinner like we used to. I thought about it for 3 days before saying yes. He arrived with flowers, not expensive ones, just a simple bouquet from the grocery store. He helped me set the table without being asked, did the dishes after we ate, and left before it got dark. We didn't talk about the theft, the repayments, or the therapy sessions. We talked about his new job, my garden, a book we'd both read. It was awkward at times, with long pauses where there used to be easy conversation. But it was honest, and that meant something. As Tyler was leaving, he paused at the door. Grammy, I know I still have years of payments ahead of me. I know I haven't earned your trust back. But I want you to know that these Sunday dinners, if we keep having them, they mean everything to me. Not because of your money or your things. Just because I miss you. I miss you too, I admitted. I miss the boy you were and the relationship we had. But maybe we can figure out who we are to each other now. I'd like that. After he left, I sat in my living room looking at the photos on the wall. Tyler at 8, gap-toothed and innocent. Tyler at 13, awkward and earnest. Tyler at 23, confident and charming. And Tyler at 26, finally starting to understand what it means to be accountable. I didn't know if we'd ever get back to the relationship we once had. I didn't even know if I wanted to. But maybe we were building something better. Something based on truth instead of enabling, on respect instead of entitlement, on earned trust instead of blind love. James's watch ticked steadily on my wrist, marking time, marking progress, marking the slow, painful work of healing. It wasn't the ending I would have chosen. But it was the ending I had, and I was learning to make peace with that. 2 years after that first confrontation in my living room, Tyler made his 24th payment. Only 276 more to go. He'd been coming to Sunday dinner twice a month, had gotten promoted at his job, and had started volunteering at a senior center, helping elderly people protect themselves from financial scams. I want to help people avoid having a grandson like I was, he told me. It wasn't redemption exactly. But it was something. And sometimes something is enough. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments. Remember, setting boundaries with family is hard, but your well-being matters at every age. Your voice matters.